Howdy, 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 my name's Anashi Sasuke. Welcome back to Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki. Before we get back into the thick of things, I realized the last time I was in here, on Saturday, I think, that there's little rainbows here now. I'm not sure why there's, brown and black in the rainbow, because that's not how rainbows work, but I think it's cool that that's rainbows, and I don't know how long it was like that before I noticed, but cool. Okay, so, in the last episode we did 10 entries instead of 5, so we are at the Equestrian Soul. So we're going to, in this episode, do the Equestrian Soul, a bundle of stories, deathly videotape, many fingers, many toes, and sharpeners. Just about all of that sounds terrifying. I wonder if any of it will be Keter. Because we got 3 Keters in the last episode, so maybe there won't be any more Keters for the rest of the 500s. I don't know. Maybe this next one will be a Keter. It's not. Okay, it's safe though. Except for approved testing, SCP-581 must be kept a minimum of 1,000 meters from all members of the equine species. It is to be kept in locked, climate-controlled facilities. No firearms are allowed in proximity to any examples of 2. 581 is a horse's nose bag made from leather. Any equine subject, horses, mules, and donkeys have all been confirmed to be susceptible. Zebras, onagers, and other non-domesticated hybrids have not been tested due to budgetary reasons. The hell is an onager? An ager? How do I say this? Onager. And it says it is an animal of the race of the Asian wild ass, native to the northern Iran. Say again? Onager. Okay. And all other within 500 meters, there's potentially an instance of SCP-581-1. One sole motivation appears to be inserting its muzzle within 581. This is strong enough to override instinctual reasons to predator urine or females in heat, and has caused instances of one to harm themselves in the process of attempting to free 581 from within steel safes. Only one instance of one is known to exist at any time. Examples of one will actively resist being removed from its range of effect and will sicken, and 90% die within a week of it being forcibly removed. If one succeeds in inserting its muzzle within 581, it will become an example of 2. 2 is an equine characterized by several anomalous behaviors. These behaviors seem to indicate that 2 believes itself to be a human. Observed anomalous human-like behaviors include attempts to walk on its hind legs, attempts to attack its head with its front hooves, attempts to enter the driver's seat of unoccupied vehicles, fascination by and then hostility towards reflective surfaces, attempts to clasp firearms with its front hooves, extended periods of aberrant modulated vocalizations. These are believed to be its attempts to speak. Audio recordings available in Archive 581-H19, and data expunged. To date, all specimens of 2 have been euthanized due to multiple limb fractures. No specimen has survived longer than 2 hours. And it says it's a cognito hazard, but it only affects horses, so it's safe. Or, you know, horse-like things. Huh. Next up is a bundle of stories. Well, you know, I would have thought that, a thing called the Equine Soul would have been Keter, but what do I know? Am I right? Due to the high risk of memetic spread, all information and materials pertaining to the specifics of 582 Delta's containment narrative, manifestations, abilities, and history that has been judged conducive to perpetuation of the meme are to be handled solely by Special Intelligence Team Bump of the Night. Security Chief Special Order 817-2 blank blank blank. Access to secure Archive 582 by outside personnel is permitted only by 2/3 majority O5 permission. All major internet search engines are to be monitored for any references to 582 under any of its known names. Copies of all media relating to SCP-582 are to be stored in Secure Archive 582. The original sources of these materials and all records regarding the individuals responsible for the creation of such are to be expunged and outlined in Document 582-RP. Description: 582 is an adaptive, self-propagating meme in the form of an entity most often referred to as blank. Its primary ability is passive reality modification. Any fictional account written about 582 will become a factual record of a manifestation of the entity, in which 582 will carry out all actions attributed to it in the narrative. These manifestations will happen at whatever time and place is specified. If no specific location or time is given, the manifestation will occur at any opportunity that will meet the narrative's criteria. Details attributed to 582 are permanent and cumulative. If a narrative contains descriptions that contradict previously established details, it will either have no effect at all upon 582, or the effect will be lessened to a point where such events could logically occur. Through this effect, 582 has a consistent, if generalized, portrayal due to its use in works by multiple authors both before and after its discovery by the Foundation. The actual abilities within narrative are generally nebulous and lacking in detail. The most common format of story involves the aftermath of a manifestation of 582 or a short-lived encounter with it, rather than an explanation or justification of the events. What is known is that 582 regularly appears capable of appearing or disappearing at any place or time, and that no method of terminating or otherwise harming it within any narrative has been successful. All personnel, please note, 582 is a reaction. It has shown no signs of actual consciousness or free will. Everything it has ever said, done, or thought is because someone wrote that it would. Let's see what that first addendum is. Security mimetic rhinos sometimes forget. The origin of 582 may be traced to blank blank, an obscure American author active during the 1940s and 50s. The original works containing 582 were never published, but were discovered by several close friends and fellow amateur writers, namely blank blank and blank, upon the author's death in 1957, who then served as the original infection vector. Blank was considered an overall subpar author, having only published 4 short stories in his life, all within now defunct Blank Blank magazine. In addition, he was often criticized for lifting the style of Howard P. Lovecraft considerably, a stance backed up by his personal journals, which detailed an obsession with Lovecraft's writings and the author himself. Furthermore, several earlier entries imply that 582 was formed recursively, and that the author wrote a narrative detailing his own encounter with it decades prior, believed to be either document 582-14 or 15, which then led him to write the first narratives featuring it. Security mimetic, the Harvest Moon Roars. 582's portrayal as a godlike entity has led to a collection of commonly featured avatars. Its actual form, if extant, has yet to be featured in any narrative. A list of notable manifestations of 582 is as follows. Alpha, the most common instance of 582 being a humanoid creature standing approximately 2 meters tall and wearing thickly layered robes, often compared to burlap. The figure is hooded and no face is visible underneath. Common additional details include carrying sacks or bundles of unknown content or the appearance of heavy bleeding. Manifestation Alpha is the least dangerous of 582's manifestations, with death occurring in only 23% of instances. Beta is a hexapedal entity appearing to be made out of molten tar. Beta will attempt to attack any nearby humans unprotected by certain preventative measures detailed in Document 34. Beta has on 5 occasions appeared at the same time as Alpha, seemingly using Alpha as a host or disguise. Manifestation Gamma is a manifestation appearing as a 100-meter wide plant-like entity, giving off an intense white light and substantial radiation. The strength of the radiation is unmeasured, but it is enough to be fatal to humans within 6 to 10 hours. Gamma does not appear to take notice of any outside stimuli, and has on one occasion been observed growing out of or feeding off of manifestation Beta. Delta is the manifestation and containment within the Foundation, appearing as a poorly defined humanoid shadow. Due to the nature of its containment narrative, Manifestation Delta is incapable of exiting its containment module or interacting with personnel. Epsilon, revised in 2005, is considered no longer canon after the events of Manifestation Event 201. Further information may be found in Document 201B. Manifestation Zeta exists within more than 3 dimensions, making it impossible to properly perceive by humans. It has only been encountered once, resulting in 358 deaths in a localized restructuring event. Zeta Prime is the post-metamorphosis form of Zeta. The account involving Zeta Prime was interrupted mid-narrative by Foundation personnel. Any further instances of Zeta Prime are to be considered a continuation of XK Scenario 582-6B. Protocol 582-XK1 Jonah and the Whale is to be initiated immediately. Item 3. Security mimetic Triple Shot Allowed. In accordance with Security Chief Special Order 945, a segment of 582's containment narrative has been included for illustrative purposes. What thoughts, if any, that flow through that alien mind are not mine to know? It remains silent and still within its chamber, entrenched in the persistence of its own memory. It remains, but only as a shade of what it was, its power spent, or at least come to rest. Interesting. So, that was a bundle of stories. That brings us to Deathly Videotape, which is Euclid, and it's a color collection. 583 is to be locked in a heavy-duty chrome steel safe. Any level 3 or higher personnel have access to the safe. A lethal security system is to be kept operative in the containment room for 583 at all times. It is fragile and must not approach or be approached by any magnetic field-generating material or device because videotapes will be blanked out from that. It is only as sturdy as a standard videotape and is to be handled with extreme care. It must not be destroyed due to continued research into data expunged. Interesting. SCP-583 is a Sony Color Collection 60 to 90 minute and mini DV videotape, its case composed primarily of transparent green plastic. Details of the contents of the tape itself as described by test subjects. Nothing on the tape for the first 12 seconds. Playback of a recording of Sesame Street Live begins. Below with no sound, a date stamp of redacted is visible. Blank starts choking and tries to get out of his costume. They die from apparent asphyxiation. During the next 19 seconds, 3 other characters, redacted, start choking and die in the same way. The recording stops, the rest of the tape is blank. Subjects who watch the recording suffer from a unique perception disorder. After seeing redacted die of asphyxiation, subjects witness the similar death of every character, fictional or not, that they see on TV or in a movie, hear or in radio, or read about, whether in printed or electronic format. This condition appears to be permanent, ending only with the death of the subject. Consult document T01 for further information. Is that here? There it is! Recorded testimony of Blanky the Blank after exposure to the recording, retrieved during intervention P12. Translated from French. Oh, jeez. Subject was given a hardbound copy of A Clash of Kings and was asked to read aloud from anywhere in the book. It started at page 201. 1-2, this is blank blank, testing the effect of SCP-583. I start reading. Ago was back next. The southwest was barren and burnt, he swore. He had found the ruins of 2 more cities and since he had started coughing. Okay, I think it has started. I'll read further, he'll die, you'll see. Back to the text. One was warded by a ring of skulls mounted on rusted iron spears, so he dared not enter, but he had explored the second for as long as he could before his throat began to ache. He showed Danny an iron bracelet he had found, set with an uncut fire opal the size of her thumb. She was sick too, and the idea of the princess being ill like he was comforted him a little. There were scrolls as well, but they were dry and crumbling, and Ago had left them where they lay. He took a rest in his tent, praying a good night to his Targaryen mistress, and died that same night. I skip a few pages now till Danny dies too. Hear this, here I stand. Look, if that is your pleasure, but first tell me your names. And then she fell. I need a book with a lot of characters in it, I guess. Okay, so now I'll read this Carambar joke. Let's see. A French brand of candy bar which contains low-quality jokes on the inside of its wrapper. So you can see it works with anything. Why did the chicken cross the road? Who cares? Halfway across the road, it fell over and choked and died. Haha. End of testimony. Addendum 1. Disposable dudes exposed to 583 are to be placed into psychological studies to examine the long-term psychological effects of exposure to 583. The standard termination schedule for these subjects may be waived with authorization from Dr. Somebody. Dang. Okay, so next up, many fingers, many toes. Whatever rating this is, it already sounds like it's going to be uncomfortable. Yup! Yup, 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 yup. So, file samples of 584 are to be kept in cold storage, in accordance with established biohazard protocols, and access is restricted to personnel of at least level 2 clearance. Research requires level 3 approval. Subjects accidentally contaminated with 584 must be quarantined immediately as contact biohazards and must submit to involuntary antiviral treatment. If the subject shows no signs of lesion activity for 12 weeks and tests negative in 2 consecutive biopsies performed at 6 and 12 weeks following exposure, quarantine procedures can be downgraded. Follow-up biopsies at 12 and 24 months must also return negative results before the subject is to be considered clean. Any subject with a positive test for 584 or displaying characteristic lesions should be terminated. So, 584 is a highly infectious viral pathogen that, if left untreated, causes a disfiguring overgrowth of supernumerary limbs. See file photos. I'm not going to see the file photos. Structurally similar to the herpes simplex family of viruses, 584 spreads via direct person-to-person contact and through contact with infected bodily fluids, and can also cross the placental barrier from an infected mother to her fetus, resulting in characteristic birth defects. It typically lies dormant deep in the dermal tissue of those infected, largely suppressed by the immune system except for sporadic outbreaks. It is estimated that upwards of 80% of those exposed to the virus are asymptomatic carriers, making actual infection rates unknowable. Current estimates place the highest rates of infection in Asia, particularly India and China, where the virus likely originated. The virus appears limited to humans. An outbreak of 584 typically begins with the appearance of a small, less than 2 centimeters, painless lesion, most commonly on the extremities. Often these lesions appear similar to warts or skin tags. If not removed, the lesions will quickly grow to resemble a fully functional, though often undersized, appendage. Often the appendage will be appropriate to the limb on which the lesion appeared, i.e. extra toes on a foot, extra hands on an arm, etc. But severe outbreaks can trigger severely disfiguring, chaotic lesion formation elsewhere on the body, such as the head or torso. Lesions can appear singly or in groups. Notably, 584 has been shown to be able to regenerate missing limbs or digits in subjects who lost them due to an accident or congenital defects. These replacement appendages are full-size and fully functional. It is believed that 584 functions by activating regenerative biological processes that normally cease shortly after embryonic formation. However, its effect seems restricted to external organs appendages only. Antiviral treatment is quite effective at limiting and stopping outbreaks of 584, but currently there is no cure for the virus and it is highly communicable. Drug therapy has been found to stop the growth of lesions in advanced developmental stages, however it is not effective once the appendage is fully formed. Surgical removal of lesions is only effective in the long term if coupled with drug therapy, as scar sites are prone to developing recurrent lesions. 584 infection in unborn babies, especially if contracted during the first trimester, has resulted in high rates of polymelia, extra limbs, polydactyl, extra fingers, and parasitic twinning. Ew. And that brings us to sharpeners. Which is safe, but probably still really messed up. SCP-585 2-4 are to be kept in a standard hazardous object containment at Site-19. Pencils modified by 585 are extremely dangerous and should be returned to their normal state at the end of testing. As of Incident 1, no pencil should be sharpened for more than 50 rotations without O5 approval. 585A is stored in a glass vacuum flask, which is locked in storage vault blank. Special authorization by Dr. Somebody or any senior Foundation staff is required for experiments involving A. 585 2-4 are small 2-hole pencil sharpeners made of brightly colored plastic. Look at them, don't they look nice? Reminds me of The Hunt. Of course it's the factory! It's always the factory when it's safe-looking things that are terrible. The factory is printed in slightly raised text on the undersides. Any pencil inserted into the small hole of 585 and turned clockwise will be sharpened, as is normal for a pencil sharpener. However, with each rotation, the sharpness of the pencil's point continues to increase without any apparent limit. Any pencil sharpened by a 585 small hole that is then inserted into the larger hole and turned counterclockwise is unsharpened, with each rotation undoing the effect of one previous rotation in the small hole. Only the shape of the pencil is changed. Lost mass from shavings is not restored. The tip of affected pencils can be broken off, but the point will retain its sharpness and remain dangerous. Preliminary testing indicates that never sharpened flat pencils reach the normal maximum sharpness a sharpener can achieve after 20 rotations. From this point on, it will shave exponentially less mass off the pencil with each rotation. At 30 rotations, the pencil dropped from 1 meter embedded in itself by 10 centimeters into a solid steel bar. Oh, I read that weird. They dropped the pencil 1 meter and it just went 10 meters into a solid steel bar. 585 works best on thin cylinders of wood cored with graphite. It will also function with other easily shavable materials such as plastic or paper cored with graphite, or with a pure graphite stick. Pure wood or plastic does not produce the effect, nor does any material that cannot be shaved by an ordinary pencil sharpener. 585 1-4 were recovered from an elementary school and blank after data expunged. Incident 1. A standard HB pencil never used was chosen for extended testing of 1. Pencil is now designated 585A. After 20 clockwise rotations in the small hole of 585, A was applied to a sheet of paper, functioned as a normal pencil. After 30, it was confirmed capable of piercing steel. A sheet of paper was sliced in half by the point. After 40, it was attached to a string and dropped from 1 meter height into bedrock. It penetrated half a meter. After 50 rotations, the same test as above was performed. It penetrated 5 meters of bedrock. After 60 rotations, it penetrated 50 meters of bedrock. The testing continued until at exactly 100 rotations, its tip began radiating extreme heat, causing its wooden component to burst into flames. Further testing on the graphite core, data expunged. The item was deemed too high of a risk to keep, considering that that another could be easily created, and A was inserted into the large hole of 585-1. The extreme heat caused 1 to melt. It was placed in a vacuum flask for storage. Seriously, how many things pop up from the factory? I don't want to spoil it for myself, because it's always interesting when the factory shows up, especially since the factory was one of the options for SCP-1. And everything about it is just absolutely awful, so every time something shows up from the factory, you know it's gonna be messed up. Every single time. Anyway, that about does it for this episode of Let's Read the SCP Foundation Wiki, and the next one we're going to start with the inscribable object, whatever that means. And then we're going to go through a model system of Voracious Coin, which sounds like it probably eats things, the price of obsession, and he feels your pain. Oh, but then in the next episode we get some more Dr. Wondertainment stuff, so that's always fun. It's like Dr. Wondertainment is like the opposite of the factory. His things are still terrible, but they're whimsically terrible instead of just burn in hell terrible. So, again, this has been Anachi Sasuke. If you liked it, a like and a subscribe will be groovy. If you didn't, you don't need to do either one of those things. And I'll see y'all in the next one, and if you watch it, enjoy the rest of E3. It's been interesting so far. Later.